So hello, and welcome to another Legends of Runeterra video. My name is Chris, and today we're going to talk about this deck because it's been causing quite a bit of controversy, and there's been basically two camps, as far as I can tell, regarding this deck of Ezreal Kennen. If you go onto the Legends of Runeterra subreddit right now, you will see quite a few different posts about how this deck, Ezreal Kennen, is quite frustrating. Frustrating to play against more so than perhaps to play with, because of numerous things, really, whether it be the turn timer or just the way the deck is, and we'll get into that a bit later. But, people have been voicing their frustrations with Ezreal Kennen. If you've played against Ezreal Kennen, I'm sure that you might have felt frustration as well. But then there is another side to the argument of people saying, basically, it's new, let it settle, we don't really know how good the deck is, etc, 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 all that, just wait, be quiet for just a second and let people enjoy the new things, right? And Mogwai himself very much expressed this in a tweet. I've both played with and against Ezreal Kennen quite a bit myself. I can definitely see the deck becoming tier 1, maybe even the best, who knows. Is it really necessary to complain about it when it's not even half a week has passed since its inception? It's kind of annoying. And multiple people I've seen, in the comments of those Reddit threads as well, have been saying a similar thing of like, why are people complaining about this? It's only just come out, calm down. Now, I'm not going to really take either side here because I think that this seems to happen quite often, and it happens with a lot of controversial things that happen in the game where both sides have good points, but both sides think that the other side is making a point that I don't think that they are at all. The side that is saying that Ezreal Kennen is annoying, I think what's happening is people are translating that as they think the deck is too good or too strong, and therefore are saying, well, you don't know if it's too strong or not yet. The meta isn't evolved enough yet. There isn't a meta yet, so it can't be too strong yet. We don't know. And that's what those people like Mogwai there are kind of taking from it, I think. That, these people are complaining they don't even know what they're talking about because none of us know yet. Whereas I actually think it's something completely different that people who are annoyed with this deck are saying why they're annoyed. And, people are really good at knowing what they feel. They might not know why they feel it. They might not know the exact causes for that feeling. They might not know how to express themselves to describe why they are feeling that thing. But they generally know when something makes them feel something, what that something felt is. People are pretty good at understanding what emotions they feel. It's just the reasons why perhaps are more complex. And when it comes to something like Ezreal Kennen, this deck is very frustrating to play against for a multitude of reasons. One, and if your opponent is a slow player, playing against this deck can be just an absolute waste of your time because it will take forever for the opponent to make some of their turns. They will take a very long time to do one turn because they have so many different small actions to potentially complete. And so, that will take up a lot of time. So that's just frustrating anyway, perhaps. You feel like you're just sitting there waiting for your opponent who might as well be playing solitaire. But this deck has similar properties to other things as well, and other decks that have existed, but I don't think quite to this degree. This is a deck where if you draw the absolute nuts, if you get Kennen into Godwillow Seeding, into Kinku Wayfinder hitting the Allegiance, and then have an Ezreal drawn as well, and you've got Kennen leveled up by like turn 4, turn 5, whatever it may be, and then you have an Ezreal, I can't think of a single deck that can really give you a game at that point. And there have been other decks like this as well, when you just absolutely hit the nuts, your opponent has almost no chance. There definitely have been those decks, but this one feels very much like that. But this one also has the problem of sometimes when they don't hit the nuts, when they have a hand of Recall, Retreat, a Twin Disciplines, and a Deny, any deck can beat them. Literally any deck can beat them. You could be playing the most meme deck of all, but if they have that starting hand, you have a real chance. You have a real chance of actually beating this deck no matter what you're playing. And so it feels very much like one of those decks that can be insane if they get the right cards and can be very bad if they get the wrong cards. And playing against decks like that is just inherently frustrating because if they hit the nuts, you didn't have a game. If they hit the worst hand, you didn't have a game. And so this deck is kind of taking away one of the main points of Runeterra, one of the best parts of Runeterra, which is the interaction between both players. Because oftentimes when you play against this deck, basically the question you're asking is, what is in your hand? Because the game could not matter. And there is a middle ground, of course, where the game will matter, where they don't hit the nuts and they don't hit the worst thing in the world, then you'll have an actual game. But a lot of the games are already predetermined based off what the Ezreal Kennen player has already drawn. Because if they drew the nuts, they probably won. And if they drew terribly, they probably lost. And it doesn't really matter what you're doing at all. And that can be quite a frustrating experience as well. Even when you win, it can be frustrating because you just stomp someone. Like, you know, it's not necessarily that fun to have, you know, your opponent concedes on turn 4 because they had a terrible hand. You're like, okay, I'll take it, I guess. But you didn't really have fun. You didn't feel like any of the decisions that you made had a real influence on the game. And we've had a similar discussion around cards like Minimorph, where it's not the strength of the card of Minimorph that is the problem, it's the way it makes you feel. It's a feel bad card. You know, potentially you're playing Scion or Tryndamere or Anivia or Viego, right? And it just gets Minimorphed, and you've built this whole deck around this strategy that has been rendered completely useless by one card because, you know, and they're going to win the game because they had that one card. And it's not necessarily a strength thing, it's just a feels bad thing. And I think that that's what people need to understand, that when people are complaining about this deck, it's because it feels bad to play against. It's not because it's too strong. I don't know how strong the deck is. No one, I don't think, really fully knows how strong this deck is. But you can complain about how it makes you feel, because those are real feelings, and, you know, this deck is frustrating to play against, and that's what people are expressing. And so, you know, I'm not saying the deck needs nerfed necessarily, but it might need to be changed in some way to make it less frustrating to play against. Those were just some quick thoughts. Again, I'm not really taking either side on this part. I can definitely understand both sides of the argument, but I think it's just really a misunderstanding between people of what is really going on with this deck. And when it comes to playing against this deck, it's just frustrating to play against. It's not that it's too strong. And that's all I have to say. So with that said, thank you so much for watching and have a really nice day.